Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Um, Thanks for joining us. We have with us today Aaron Swanson, who is a transportation planner too with Connecticut DOT. And I'm going to let him do a little bit more of an introduction of himself. But um, as Lisa said, this is a presentation on the Vision Zero legislation. Aaron has a lot of great information for you all this morning. So um, I'm going to let him get right to it. And please feel free if you have questions. As Lisa said, put them in the chat, or when Aaron's done, we could certainly open it up to actual conversation. So with that, Aaron, it's all you.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everybody. Like Melissa said, my name is Aaron Swanson. I'm a transportation planner at CTDOT. And for the last couple of years, I've coordinated administrative activities for the Vision Zero Council. That group has been around for about 3 years now. And what I'm going to cover today is legislation that was passed last year that came at the recommendations of the council to the legislature. So with that, we can get started. Next slide, please. So the Vision Zero Council is an interagency group made up of representatives from several state agencies, including the Departments of Transportation, Public Health, Motor Vehicles, Education, the State Police, the Division of Criminal Justice, Aging and Disability Services, and the Office of the Early Childhood Advocate. Next slide, please. So before we jump into what's kind of become generally known as the Vision Zero law or the Vision Zero bill when it was making its way through the legislature, I just want to give you all a little bit of background on the history of the council and the process through which the legislation came about. The Vision Zero Council itself was created back in 2021 by Public Act 21-28, and that was part of sweeping safety legislation that also targeted pedestrian safety and allowed for the piloting of automated enforcement through the work zone safety pilot, which has been ongoing. The council was initially tasked by the legislature with creating and submitting a policy and interagency approach to eliminate all transportation-related fatalities and severe injuries to pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, motorists, and passengers. The council submitted that policy to the General Assembly in February of 2022. And then the council moved to create subcommittees to assist with its work as the legislation allowed. These 4 subcommittees were focused on engineering, enforcement, education, and equity. And once they were formally established and staffed, the council tasked the subcommittees with meeting and to get together to have discussions with the end goal of drafting and submitting policy recommendations for the council's consideration. Once they did that, they submitted those to the council. The council voted on which recommendations to put forth to the Transportation Committee of the General Assembly. And then in early 2023, the Transportation Committee raised HB 5917, an act implementing recommendations of the Vision Zero Council. And then after successful votes in both the House and Senate, Public Act 23-116 was signed by Governor Lamont on June 27th, 2023. The law contained many of the important recommendations transmitted by the Vision Zero Council and its subcommittees. And, the passage of that legislation certainly drew lots of media attention. And, there in the media was mostly referred to as the red light camera law, and which is interesting because certainly, yes, automated enforcement portion of the law, it's really significant. It represents a major step forward in terms of giving us new safety tools to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes. But there's also so much more in the bill. It goes far beyond just being an automated enforcement law. There's many other provisions in the law that have received less attention. So today, what I'd like to do is kind of call some attention to those other parts of the law that maybe didn't get so much spotlight shown on them. And I just want to run through each section of the legislation, what its impacts are, which agencies are responsible for carrying them out, and where we stand in terms of implementing them in the 7, almost 8 months since the law is passed, right? Usually these things kind of take time to get going. And I can kind of let you all know where we are with that. So next slide, please. All right, with that, let's start right at section 1 of the statute, which requires DOT to study the Idaho stop and prohibiting turning right on red. So for the Idaho stop, if you're not familiar with what that is, it essentially allows bicyclists to treat stop signs as yield signs, red lights as stop signs, and red lights as yield signs for right turns only. The study is in the final stages of completion and will be transmitted to the legislature in the coming weeks. The final report includes a literature review of the benefits and drawbacks of the Idaho stop, as well as legislative changes that other states and jurisdictions have enacted to incorporate it into their statutes. The report does cite a lack of research on the safety effectiveness of the Idaho stop, as really states have only recently adopted the practice for the most part. But that said, the research that does exist shows that the Idaho stop will not result in an increase in bicyclist fatalities or injuries. So that's pretty positive. And then the other study that the legislature requested DOT to do in section 1 was the no turn on red study. And DOT's traffic safety engineering group got together and they researched that topic. They reviewed ITE and other state DOT information, including the status of no turn on red implementations in other states. They gathered and analyzed crash data for crashes, specifically associated with right turning vehicles from an intersection and angle crashes that occurred at intersections. Traffic safety worked also with the Yukon crash team to further refine that data, and to do that, they used police crash reports. So based on that review, traffic safety prepared draft recommendations that were recently presented to the commissioner. And now they're finalizing that report based on that discussion. And the final report, again, will be shared with the legislature in the coming weeks. Next slide, please. Section 2 of the statute required DOT to adopt and revise an intersection control evaluation policy, or an ICE policy as they're more commonly known, to use when evaluating new and existing intersections. So right now, DOT has convened a working group to develop the department's ICE policy. That group includes engineers from Division of Traffic Engineering, Highway Design, and OSTA. The working group has researched and communicated with other states, much like the other studies. We're looking to see what works in other states and other places about their ICE policies. And they focused especially on the policies that are recognized by FHWA, because those are mostly, for the most part, considered best practice. So that research gave that group a better understanding of how the policies work, what factors that play key roles in determining control strategies for the locations where they're implemented. And one thing that the working group noted was that many states that have ICE policies, that they have a framework for them that's broken into several stages. And our DOT's currently proposing to do the same. Again, this isn't finalized yet, but that's the proposal, is that there will be a framework that includes a 4-stage process. And currently the first 2 stages of that process have been drafted, and work continues to try to continue the next 2 phases. Next slide, please. Okay, on to section 3 of the legislation, which requires DOT to award an exemplary Vision Zero program distinction to local and regional boards of education. So this has done this, a lot of work went into this, both from DOT. Kristen Levesque is the Safe Routes to School coordinator, and she worked in coordination with the education subcommittee of the Vision Zero Council to develop this. And right now, A Vision Zero program distinction for schools is currently available upon request to local and regional boards of education. Those to be considered for this program, those districts have to offer programs that provide opportunities to learn about either the mission of the Vision Zero Council, safe driving habits, or pedestrian safety skills. And so there's an application up on the website. Application materials can be found on the DOT website via the Vision Zero program distinction for schools application. Applications are encouraged before May 1st for recognition and award by June. And lots more information about that program can also be found at the DOT Safe Routes to School website. Next slide, please. Section 4 allowed prosecutorial officials to require people who contest infractions in certain violations to attend an approved driving safety course as a condition for resolving the ticket before a hearing. So right now, prosecutors have the option to make use of existing safety and training programs as a result of the, as a result of the enacted legislation. They can continue to review infractions for possible resolution, including existing offense-specific programs. So driver retraining, speed programs, things like that. Next slide, please. Sections 5 to 7 of the law, they require DMV to first develop a safety video documenting new traffic safety laws and require people to view it during every other license renewal and when transferring a license from another jurisdiction. So if you came here from another state or another country and you needed to get a Connecticut license, you'd have to watch that video. And 2, the law requires DMV to provide other safety materials when applicable. So right now, DMV is working closely with the DOT to secure funding for the production of a video that highlights the new laws impacting motorists. I know that the two agencies met recently to discuss a grant application to assist DMV in the production of that video. And I believe DMV is aiming to have that application completed by the end of the month. So hopefully they should be able to make some progress on that very soon. Next slide, please. Section 8 requires DOT to conduct a public awareness campaign about the dangers of driving while under the influence of certain over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs, with an emphasis on opioids and cannabis. So for this one, DOT has developed and executed a public education campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of drug-impaired driving, and that campaign is called Driving High Equals DUI. That high visibility statewide campaign includes television, radio, streaming, audio, podcasts, digital, social, mobile, gaming, outdoor, Hispanic media, in-bar advertising, and more. And maybe some of you have seen that either on your mobile phone or heard it at a gas station or somewhere else. In addition to that, DOT also conducts ongoing public relations efforts with statewide media, as well as community outreach. And beyond that, the ad campaign, DOT is the lead agency for Connecticut's Impaired Driving Task Force, which works to reduce injuries due to impaired driving on our roadways. Next slide, please. Okay, in Section 9, the law requires DOT to examine proposals from the Vision Zero Council's Equity Subcommittee when developing their capital plan. And in doing so, considering infrastructure that specifically protects vulnerable highway users. So in accordance with the law, DOT has instituted a new Complete Streets Controlling Design Criteria policy. And along with that, there's complementary engineering and construction directives. So these newly released documents mandate that designers evaluate and, where warranted, incorporate infrastructure that specifically protects vulnerable road users on all applicable DOT administered projects. Complete streets and consideration for active transportation modes they're becoming ingrained in the culture with DOT. So that's going to ensure for upcoming projects like those listed in the draft capital 5-year capital plan, those will be developed with a consistent emphasis on the protection of vulnerable road users. And that policy and those associated directives can also be found on the DOT website if you want to take a look at them. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to section 15 of legislation because most of the rest of it deals with automated enforcement. So this is kind of the last one that's not about red light or speed cameras. So this section requires DOT to establish a program promoting seatbelt use among vulnerable communities that are less likely to wear a seatbelt. That's something that DOT has been doing for a very long time, but ultimately this places some burden on DOT to look specifically at more vulnerable populations who maybe won't wear a seatbelt as often. Right now, DOT is running 2 public education campaigns that target seatbelt use. One of those is named Toe Tag, and that's run through the Buckle Up Connecticut initiative. That focuses on a social norming message to remind motorists of the dangers of not wearing a seatbelt and the consequences of driving unbelted. The Under the Radar campaign that runs through the Click It or Ticket program. That's an enforcement message that focuses specifically more on the penalties of getting stopped without a seatbelt. But both of those campaigns are targeted specifically towards vulnerable communities that are least likely to wear a seatbelt. And again, all those platforms that I mentioned earlier that the cannabis campaign runs on, they run there too. So you may have, I'm sure most folks here are familiar with Click It or Ticket, but there's kind of been a new spin on that in the past couple of years. And next slide, please. Okay, here we are, the red light camera part of the bill that got all the attention. So sections 10 to 14 and 16 to 18 cover the bulk of what was ultimately the most high profile part of this legislation, automated enforcement. The law requires DOT to develop and revise as necessary guidance for municipalities developing speed and red light camera plans. Before submitting a plan to DOT for approval, the municipality must hold a public hearing on it, and the plan submission must be approved by a vote of either their legislative body or Board of Selectmen. The law requires municipalities to submit a subsequent plan for DOT approval every 3 years if they want to continue using speed and red light cameras after a DOT approved plan has expired. Next slide, please. So no secret here. The update, as you know, we've discussed, and I think you folks have heard about, that guidance is out. It was publicized through DOT and press releases. DOT released guidance for municipalities that elect to use automated enforcement devices, such as red light and speed safety cameras in their communities. That guidance can be found on DOT's website and contains guidelines for application and installation of these devices, as well as the criteria that DOT will use to evaluate those plans. By releasing the guidance, Connecticut towns and cities are now able to start the process of submitting applications to DOT. So we're at kind of a pause where towns kind of now have to take a look at what's in that guidance, figure out what it means for them, figure out what their next steps are. And then we anticipate that those applications will be coming into OSTA, you know, within the next few months, if not, you know, throughout the end of the year. Next slide, please. So really, that's currently where we stand in terms of what was in the Vision Zero law and where we are in implementing it. Clearly, there's a lot of work left to be done by the agencies who have to stand up the new policies and programming and studies to actually carry out the law's new requirements. That said, there's also been a lot of work that's been done in less than a year's time to try and accomplish what the real intent of that legislation is. And that's reducing and ultimately eliminating crashes that result in serious injuries and fatalities. In the meantime, and for this coming year, the Vision Zero Council and its subcommittees are continuing their work. In fact, we're working right now to finalize an annual report to send over to the Transportation Committee of the Legislature. And in that report, we're going to provide an update on tracking of the implementation of Public Act 23-116, much like you just heard just now. That's much of what's in that report is kind of what you guys heard today. We're also going to provide them a summary of the subcommittee activities and which policy recommendations the subcommittees are sending to the legislature for consideration this session. So the subcommittees got together again this past year. They're still considering policy recommendations that they want the legislature to consider. Some of the things that maybe that were in the bill that didn't go through, they want the legislatures to take another look at those. And if you're interested to see what those were, those recommendations were laid out at the December 12th council meeting, and you could find those on the Vision Zero webpage, either as part of a meeting presentation or by going ahead and watching that meeting recording. So the council is going to continue to meet quarterly. That's the plan in 2024. And we are working right now to get those meetings set up. And once we do, we're going to publicize their dates. They'll be on the Secretary of the State calendar. And I imagine that there'll be a media release that you can find on the DOT page too, once with those dates, once we get them set. Also, the subcommittees, if you want to participate, the subcommittees will be opening up for new membership in the next couple of months. So if you or someone you know might want to participate in this process, you can get involved that way. I'll say that participating in a subcommittee, it's a really good way to share safety ideas maybe you didn't see covered in the policy recommendations made to the legislature this far. And you can also provide your perspective on how you see the implementation of this new law playing out. You know, is from your perspectives, is the law doing what it's supposed to do? Is it being implemented in a way that carries on the vision that it's set out to accomplish? If you can, as far as signing up for subcommittees, once we get dates set for next year's meeting, there will be some kind of a communication about how to participate in a subcommittee. If you don't want to wait for that, you can always contact me. You can contact me through the contacts that Lisa provides, or you can email the Vision Zero link. We have a Vision Zero specific email that you see there. And of course, for all things Vision Zero, you can head to our website and check that out there. But yeah, if you're interested in a subcommittee, there will be more information posted soon about that, or feel free to contact me and I can get you in touch with the folks who chair those subcommittees. And with that, that's what's in the law. I'm interested to know if there's questions or comments or what you folks think about that.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Lots of good information, and I will just start off by saying that, as Aaron mentioned, joining one of the subcommittees can have a lot of benefits, and I am on both the engineering and the education subcommittees, and you know, not only do you get to actively participate and talk about and share your feelings and thoughts on the recommendations that will come out of that subcommittee and go to the council, but you know, you get to kind of hear other people's perspectives on some of these issues as well, right? And so you're an active participant in that Vision Zero idea and that work that we're doing here in the state. I think it's important that we're all taking as active a role in that as we can, obviously. And, you know, they are always looking for a diverse group to sit on those subcommittees, right? So, yes, it's great. You know, those of us who are on there, you know, you see people from DOT and you see people from, you know, other departments, but you know, it's nice to have some local agency representation, whether it's law enforcement or engineering, you know, just and any kind of representation from a local agency. The other thing about that too is, you know, most of us, I would think, we live in Connecticut as well, right? So not everybody, but most of us do. And so you know, you can kind of wear that hat as well, as like, oh, well, as a resident, what would you want to see happening around the state? And you can kind of feed that into your conversations in the subcommittee meeting. So I strongly encourage people to do that. You know, especially since a lot of these recommendations will impact some of what's done at a local level. So with that, Lisa has been putting a lot of information in the chat, links that Aaron alluded to or had in his presentation, contact information for various folks. I think it's at one point in there, you should be able to find the link to the coffee and conversation we did in November, which was on the automated traffic enforcement safety devices. So if you weren't able to attend that coffee and conversation with Joellette from OSTA, we did record that one as well. And Lisa put that link in the chat, so you can check that one out. And you'll get a much deeper dive into that piece of the legislation. Aaron, you know, purposely didn't get too deep into that because we'd already done that. And as he mentioned, that one seems to have gotten a lot of the attention. So wanted to focus today on some of the other good legislation that came out of the bill. But so if anyone has any questions,
Melissa, we have a raised hand.
Oh,
Charles
sure.
Harlow,
Hi, Chuck.
you'd like to
Hey,
unmute yourself.
Hi, Melissa. I just wanted to mirror what you said about joining the subcommittees. I'm the co-chair of the engineering subcommittee with Natasha Fatu. It is a very diverse group. We have bike and pedestrian advocates. We have state employees. We have a lot of town, officials and just private citizens that come along. We've had some people from, I think the Department of Health is on there to help us to try to focus where we want to go, because we look at the data for the crashes, what's out there. And then from that, we try to come up with some strategies. And I think a lot of our strategies did get passed. I think a lot, not all of them. And I think we put some more recommendations forward this year. And you can look at, as Aaron said, look at the website for the Vision Zero Council to see what our new recommendations are. But to us, this is a great way of trying to drive down crashes. And we do have a diverse group, and it's great to hear different opinions, because sometimes we don't. I'm an engineer, so I think engineer nerd thinking. But we need to balance that with real people. I guess is that the right way to say it? But anyway, we need to balance that to get a check on how we're thinking. So I just do want to encourage you to join anyone's. And I'm also on the education subcommittee too, just as a member. I think that's another great committee, because some of the ideas we've come up with have also passed, and it helps. And just trying to educate people and trying to get the word out to what good steps there are to try to drive down crashes. So I just want to, I'm very happy with the Vision Zero Council and how they're going, and I'm encouraging other people to join and help us.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I will say, if you have an idea that you think is maybe, outside the box of the things that are generally talked about, that's good. That's what we're looking for on the subcommittees. I mean, we throw out all kinds of ideas. They may not all make it through to the Vision Zero Council as the recommendation, but we talk about lots of different things. And it's open to any idea that you might have that you think can help. We're listening to it. Can you just tell folks again, Aaron, we had a question in the chat. Just remind them how they could join a subcommittee.
Sure. So there'll be some formal announcement when we get the meeting scheduled for the quarterly meetings for the council for 2024. There'll be part of that announcement, I assume, is going to include a way to sign up for a subcommittee. We'll have a form that folks can fill out. But like I said, if you can't wait and you want to know more about the subcommittees and you want to try to participate, you can contact me. You can either reach out to me directly, or you can contact me through the Vision Zero inbox. And, Melissa and Chuck, I appreciate you talking a little bit more about the subcommittees. Today's conversation or today's topic is obviously the law, the legislation that passed, what's in it, what's going on with it. But, the subcommittees have done a lot of work for the council. And, you know, these are folks who volunteered to participate, right? I don't, anyone other than the really, each one of the co-chairs was appointed by a state agency member, but pretty much everybody else that participates in that process. So other than those 4 people, everybody that participates in that process volunteered to do so. And that just shows the kind of commitment to safety and really trying to reduce crashes that people have that participate on those. And that's really, really admirable. And we asked the subcommittees, you know, not we, but the council, I should say, asked the subcommittees to do a lot of work. And, you know, when we get together with these things, I think we've all seen in government where we have a great initiative, we get together, we put our heads together, we put out a report or we put something together, and then it just kind of goes up on a shelf and we never really see anything from it. And what's great about the work that the subcommittees and the council have been able to accomplish, the recommendations that these subcommittees made directly went into that bill that passed and became law. So the things that we see, the things that I shared with you about what's in that law, that was directly came out of the work that those subcommittees did. So like Melissa said, you know, a diverse background and a diverse range of opinions and ideas is encouraged. They don't all make it. They don't all make it through. But so far, you know, participation with the council through those subcommittees it's been an avenue for folks to get real changes made that lead to better safety outcomes.
Yeah, we did have a couple questions in the chat come in while you were talking, Aaron. So the first one is, can you expand on section 9 slide where this is from the slide, I'm guessing, where designers evaluate as warranted, what are they evaluating? So I don't know if you want that slide pulled back up
Let
or.
me see. Yeah, let me go back. Slide 9 is that the complete streets controlling design?
Bill, I don't know if you want to, is that the one you're asking about, Bill? The complete streets? We'll see if we get an answer from Bill. It says section 9 slide.
Oh, section. Yeah. Yep. So that's the complete streets controlling design. So what I would encourage you to go and take a look at that policy. It's the way that policy is written. It's for roads with different volumes and different daily traffic. So the pedestrian or bike facilities that would be required on projects are based on volumes and traffic on those roadways. And that's all laid out pretty clearly in that policy. And you can also on our website, and that was linked in the chat, I believe, to where you can find that policy and those accompanying directives. And I believe even the worksheets that engineering is using are on there as well.
Thank you. And another question, will Connecticut DOT be supporting any new safety legislation in the upcoming 2024 session? Other agencies might be interested in offering formal support if there are new legislative safety proposals.
I believe that we are. I'm not exactly sure what is and is not going to go. But the other thing that I would say is that while the council didn't formally endorse the subcommittee recommendations this year, we're transmitting them in that annual report to the legislature. That report is going to be going over very soon, within the next few days, hopefully next week, if not the week following. And when that goes over, there will be a formal announcement made about that too. So you'll be able to see what policy recommendations the subcommittees are recommending that the legislature consider. So when that goes, you can take a look at those, or like I said, you can go to the Vision Zero website and you can go to, there's meeting materials linked on our website, and you could see the meeting presentation from the December 12th meeting of the council where they discussed or the subcommittees proposed their recommendations. So if you wanted to go take a look at those and find those that you support and want to share your support for, that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, just, I know from like my participation on the ones that I'm on, you know, most of it was resubmitting the recommendations for the ones that didn't go through last time around, right? We obviously felt strongly about them then. We continue to feel strongly about them now. But you know, absolutely, yeah, they're all on that December meeting. So and Lisa just put the complete streets controlling design criteria link in again for anybody who wants to check that out.
Let me link-
And the Vision Zero link again. So
I can link to where to find that December 12th meeting and those proposals right here.
sure. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm not seeing, I had a couple of questions, but I don't want to jump ahead of anybody who might have another one. So I'm just looking very quickly. I don't see any hands at the moment or anything in the chat at the moment. So I just had a couple of questions. One, I don't know that you know the answer to, but is there a timing on when the ICE policy? I mean, I know it's in a working group right now, so I don't know, you know, what.
Yeah, there is. I believe that's July 24
Okay.
that's due. Yep.
Okay.
Like I
So,
said, they're about halfway through that process right now.
okay.
I can tell you too, I can tell you a little bit more about that ICE policy. Like I said, it's what they saw in other states is that it's kind of there's a framework, like a multi-level framework. And from what I understand, there's 4 stages that the working group is looking at right now. The first stage is applicability. So determine if a project requires an ICE. And then there's applicability first, and then 3 stages after that. So those are those 4 stages. So applicability is first. Stage 1 looks at existing conditions and control type screening. So screens out control types that are not applicable. Stage 2 details the assessment of viable control types. And stage 3 is in evaluation and recommendation. So I believe that's the draft framework as it stands right now. And like I said, those first two stages have been drafted, and they're working on the second and third stage after applicability. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. I know that's something that comes up, you know, often. So just wasn't sure, but July, that's good timing. And then my other question is, and I know because this comes up a lot, obviously, in my role, we get this question often, but the no turn on red study that's being done, I'm guessing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of these other policies that come out, that will be evaluated on state roads, state intersections, at the DOT level. What happens to those local, state, you know, intersections where, for example, you know, I can think of in my past life in a municipality, you know, of course, this is many years ago, right, before this has been talked about more, but places where a municipality would have liked to have put a no turn on red, and at the time DOT said no, because it was obviously an intersection with a state road. I'm guessing that this study will potentially change that thinking.
Yeah, like I said, it's being finalized now. I think your question will probably be answered in a week or two when that policy gets transmitted over to the legislature, and you know, we can share what's in it. Like I said, we're just hammering out, as far as I know, traffic engineering is hammering out the final stages of it now. But you make a good point. As far as statewide, yeah, I think your assumptions are probably correct.
You know, it's a question that comes up, right? Obviously, you know, Jason and I in our program are, you know, talking to local agencies about issues on their local roads. But we all know that state roads, are an integral part of, many downtown areas, and there's a lot of, local state intersections that have some concerns. People are concerned about different things that go on. I do think it's important for folks to remember that, a lot of the things that come out of DOT, like even the Complete Streets directives, right? Those are specific to state projects, right? They're not putting that requirement onto the local agencies for their local road work. It's a state level policy. But that no turn on red obviously is a little different because it will affect municipalities, right? It'll a local road intersection with a state road. So we'll be looking forward to that one when it comes out. At least I will. Maybe nobody else will, but I'll be curious to see what it says. Oh, and thank you, Erin. You did put the link right to the December meeting in there. Okay, so does anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make on the Vision Zero legislation? Certainly, there's enough of us on here that are on subcommittees. If you have an idea, you could throw that out too. I'm hoping that I'll continue to participate in the two that I'm on. I don't think they kick off existing members, right, Erin?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, good to know. We just does the ICE policy apply to LOTSIP projects? I don't know if you have an answer on that.
Yeah,
but...
I apologize. I can't answer that, but if you want to send me that question, I will get it to the folks who can get that answered for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just reach out and we'll get that taken care of.
Yeah, we can forward that to you, or the person who asked it can email it, but we can definitely get it to you to get that answer. So I will say, as we start to wrap up, Lisa just put in the chat the link to our little survey on the Coffee and Conversation today. She will put up, I believe she also has a QR code to put up for folks if you want to take it that way. But we do ask that you take a minute or two. It doesn't take long to fill this out for us. We work very hard to offer what we think are timely topics in our Coffee and Conversations. We try to listen to folks, what's being talked about, what might be of interest, and filling this out, really does help us to know, one, that we're on the right track with the ones that we're doing. And if we're not, giving us some ideas as to what we can talk about moving forward in the future. Right now, especially, the beginning of the year, as we're planning for 2024 topics, we'd love to hear what you'd like to see and hear about. So please fill that out for us. With that, I'm gonna check one more time and just make sure I don't see hands, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So Erin, is there any last words that you'd like folks to hear from you on the legislation?
Well, like, again, the red light camera portion did get the most attention because it really represents an incredibly significant step forward in terms of safety and the way that or the way that enforcement takes place here in Connecticut. And other states, other places in the world are making it work. And the way that this, that portion of the law was written, I think it's as comprehensive as anyone else's, if not more, in the way that it takes equity into account, tries to really look at the way that this technology is deployed in a way that really it's about safety and nothing else. So that, it's a major step forward. But, again, today, I really wanted to highlight the other portions of that bill that law that just didn't get as much attention. And, again, it's just, I'll just reiterate what I said about, you can participate on a subcommittee, you can have your ideas heard. And in this case, this was actionable. You could see the results in the law that passed. And, you know, sometimes, like I said, in government, we don't always get to see that, you know, we don't always get to see direct results of our work come to fruition. So that's been, you know, the council's work, the subcommittee's work to see the work that people get in, actually have a meaningful impact. It's very encouraging. You know, obviously there's still too many people dying on our roadways. We all know that it's a major issue. And there's so much work to be done, but when the work that you put in, you can see the results of it. That's a great thing. So just a tip of the cap to the council, their work, and the work
Absolutely.
at subcommittee level as well.
I will also say for folks, you know, again, we're encouraging certainly subcommittee participation, but for those folks who just don't feel that that's for them, the actual council meetings are public meetings. So if you just want to pop on to a council meeting to hear what's being done at the subcommittee level, what the council's talking about, you could do that as well. You don't have to join a subcommittee to be part of the conversation. There's always a public comment section, right, on the Vision Zero meetings. So
Thank you for bringing that up, Melissa. That's a great
Yeah,
point.
sure.
All there's 4 public meetings a year that you can attend, you can listen to what's going on. And if you have comments, and you know, you don't want to turn your camera, you can type them in the public comment portion. You know, the feedback is always appreciated.
Yep. We did have one more question come in while we were talking. Will DOT be implementing automated enforcement on any state roads, or is it all up to municipalities?
So it is up to the way that the law was written. It's not a statewide law. The law does is it gives municipalities the choice if they want to deploy automated enforcement, and that's being done. And this is why that guidance was so anticipated from DOT. It's being done with some oversight from DOT, right? Because the municipalities have to put an automated enforcement plan together and submit that to DOT for approval. Once approved, then they can go ahead and you know, move forward with automated enforcement in their town. But this was not a prescriptive statewide law that said anyone has to do this. It gives municipalities the choice whether they want to do it or not.
Oh, and one more. Can municipalities place automated enforcement on state roads? I assume yes is the
Yes,
question.
as long as they're following the guidelines, you know, that DOT set forth.
Right. And a couple of things that, you know, just, I mean, again, if you could pop over and watch the automated enforcement coffee and conversation. The guidance is out now. So, you know, you can certainly take a peek at that. I will just say that, you know, one of the things that I know, and just to comment on that question specifically, you want to make sure that your signal plan is an approved, an already approved OSTA approved signal plan. You would think that you'd be like, yeah, well, of course, but it has come up. So, so just, you know, that obviously is part of what Joe talks about in the automated enforcement coffee and conversation, and it's, you know, listed in the process and the guidance, but, you know, certainly OSTA won't approve automated enforcement on a signal that doesn't have an existing approved plan. And it does happen, believe it or not. So, you know, but the other thing, just to the previous question is, one of the things that Aaron and I talked about when we were kind of talking about doing this coffee and conversation is that a lot of the other legislation, the things that Aaron talked about today, you know, don't fall to the municipality, right? So like, yes, automated enforcement is at the municipal level. It's up to a municipality to decide if they want to pursue that. But there are a lot of great safety recommendations in the rest of the bill that municipalities, local agencies will benefit from, but they don't actually have to do any of the work for lack of a better word. You know, so there are a lot of things that these other departments will be putting out that I think will improve safety on our roads, without local agencies having to do, you know, any kind of lift, let alone a heavy lift. So, you know, I think it's important that those got that attention today in this conversation, because I do think they're valuable.
I agree. Well, while you were talking, Melissa, I just thought of one more thing about, is the state implementing automated enforcement, or is it left to municipalities? I know for some of the smaller municipalities that don't have, necessarily the resources, but want to participate. I've been talking to some of the COGs, and some of the COGs plan to be able to help their municipalities with, if they want to do an automated enforcement plan, but they don't necessarily have the resources. You might try to work with your COG to try to get that implemented. I've talked to at least 2 COGs specifically, and they have plans of doing just that for some of their smaller municipalities.
Right. Which is nice because, I mean, those of us who are familiar with some of the smaller municipalities, the only traffic signal or signals that might be in a town might be a state road, right? So they might not have a lot of local intersections that are signal controlled. So, them thinking like, oh, okay, it's a state road. Am I even allowed to ask for it? And then, not having the tools necessarily to get the application done. So yeah, I mean, I think, we obviously we partner, at T2, we partner all the time with the COGs and try to get information out and get folks to utilize them as best they can. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that too, Erin. That's a great point for folks. Okay, so hopefully you've all filled out your survey for us. I do want to thank you all for attending this morning. Thank Aaron again for his presentation and his time this morning. We really appreciate it. I know it's a busy time right now for the council to get the report in. So we thank you for taking an hour with us and some prep time beforehand to talk to us today. And thank you all for coming this morning. If you think of any questions after the fact, you have Aaron's email, or you can shoot them over to us and we'll get them to him. We will get that one about the ICE policy over to you, Aaron. But with that, I will let you all go enjoy the rest of your Thursday. It's not the greatest weather, unfortunately, but at least it's a little warmer. So everyone have a great day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you the next time, hopefully. Oh, and we just had a quick comment in the chat from Tim Snyder. You can review and consider applying for SS4A grants from Federal Highway for engineering and auto enforcement program. Thank you, Tim. And he put the link in because he's so good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great presentation, guys.